everyone. Thanks for joining this. So we're going live today on LinkedIn, and we're going to discuss a very interesting topic around today's CPO and their priorities for 2024. So we're going to discuss a lot of interesting things around Gen AI, supplier innovation, rate cuts, and all the good things that our clients ask us about, and also what you all would care about. Exciting to see a couple of people joining in. I think we'll give it a minute or so to get started. But while we do that, whoever is joining, do let us know where you're joining from, right? So if it's a country, you can name the country or the city that you're actually joining from. Okay, someone has joined from Malaysia. That's great. Nice to have you here, Jean. We're all based out of India. So, but a couple of us are placed across cities, right? So I'm in Gurgaon. I know Priya is also in Gurgaon. Brish is currently in Goa, which is very exciting. And Abhishek is in Pune. Great. So I think what we can do is we can kick us off, right? The first thing we want to do here is intro the speakers, right? We're a bunch of us from very different backgrounds. Some of us are procurement veterans, have eons of experience in the procurement space. So just to get us started, firstly, Abhishek Sharma, partner of pricing assurance. He is a partner in the Everest Group team, right? And he assists clients on topics related to price benchmarking, strategic engagement reviews, and anything related to sourcing cost rationalization as a whole. So that's Abhishek for you. Then there's Priya Gupta. She's the head of procurement India at Philip Morris International, and she brings a vast experience in the FMCG industry here to this LinkedIn Live. And she has driven a lot of strategic growth at PMI, right? So leading initiatives across strategic sourcing, category management, supplier innovation, and all of those good things. And then we have Brish. He is the head of strategic sourcing APAC within Uber. Very exciting developments that he has foreseen at Uber in his entire experience here. We'll talk about all of that, and he will share a lot of insights on that today. But he has over 20 years of global experience in sourcing, procurement, and supply chain. And he is responsible for leading multiple strategic initiatives at Uber, sourcing strategy, cost optimization, supplier relationships, and also the whole partnership model that we see at Uber has been created. And myself, I'm Bhanushi Malhotra. I'm a practice director in the sourcing and vendor management team at Everest Group. And I lead all our research and advisory when it comes to procurement, category management, and market intelligence by helping CPOs accelerate growth from their outsourced services categories as a whole. So it's really nice to be here and just setting off the stage with the topic that we have at hand today. I would say that in 2024, CPOs in general and not just CPOs, right? Senior procurement, VMO leaders, they have been seeking to accelerate revenue growth as well. So we've moved beyond the cost objectives now, and we've reached the level where we're thinking about revenue growth. And we're also thinking about doing all of that. So doing more with less, right? So that's the level we're at right now. And for achieving that, we've seen a lot of adoption of modern technologies. We've seen a lot of, adoption of portfolio strategies, whether it be supplier rationalization or whether it be adding new specialist suppliers. And overall, we've just been trying to drive a lot of sustainable growth through process optimization. So with that context in place, I would like to invite Abhishek first to share his views on that. And everyone who's attending, right? Please feel free to drop comments, questions, and let's make this as interactive as we can. So, Abhishek, what do you think about that?
Sure. Thanks, Manushi, and great to connect with everyone today. I'll just share some context on what I feel about 2024. Manushi, you may hit it on the head when you mentioned doing more with less. So a few of the things which I see are positive, right? The overall demand for IT and business services, it's expected to grow at a faster pace as compared to 2023. Globally in 2023, we averaged somewhere around 1.8%. Asia Pacific was kind of leading the charge on that with about 3.8%, but then North America was almost flat, and that kind of pulled it down. I think across geographies in this year, it's going to be anywhere between 2 to 5.5%, right? So which means that on an average, we could look to be somewhere around 3.5%, which is a welcome change, from last year. But having said that, there is going to be a whole focus on doing more with less. We are seeing that pricing for services, for example, could be relatively flat in most geographies, right? The only exception being some highly specialized services like cloud or cybersecurity might just call for a greater degree of an uptick in pricing, but nowhere compared to the rate increases that we saw back in 2022 or later part of 2021. Some of the related aspects are going to be things and importance on contract benchmarking, portfolio rationalization, as Manushi mentioned, and then I know we're going to talk about it at a later point, but savings via innovation, which is going to be the key, because innovation is something which we see being talked about a lot in contracts, but enterprise clients have been, if I may use the term, complaining that what's visible in the proposal sometimes doesn't really flow through that. So there's a renewed importance on really getting that in order, so that the conversation tries to move to actual value rather than cost. The final thing, to mention before we get perspectives from Priya and Brish also, is around GCC setups. Global capability centers, GBS center setups have also increased. So that adds another dynamic in terms of the continuum of sourcing, specifically for services, as we kind of enter 2024. So yeah, lots of exciting activity happening. It's a bit more positive, right, in terms of what we as compared to last year. But again, the impact is the focus is all about efficiency and throughput, which will be interesting to see. So today we have an exciting discussion planned out, where procurement leaders from two very different industries are grouping together with us to discuss the 2024 procurement landscape. So I'll just perhaps start off with the favorite topic of mine, cost optimization. So Brish, with cost optimization objectives being a key priority in your role, how have you seen the procurement function play more of a strategic role, a strategic impact, to achieve more with less? So yeah, keen to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure, Abhishek. And first of all, thanks for inviting me for this discussion. So the topic, cost optimization, this is, I believe, the most common goal which procurement person or sourcing person would always have, in all the organizations, irrespective of, the type of industry, type of company, geographical equation. So this is always a P0, right? That you always have to find money for the organization. And in optimization, it's about how do we do more with less, or how do we keep reducing our spend year on year for the same commodity, same kind of service, and show that value back to the CFOs or the organization. So that remains, right? Now different companies follow different practices. Some are the hard negotiations, or annual tenders. My personal view is, in case the companies are following a set pattern year on year, then things become predictable, right? Even suppliers would know that I'm actually bidding for 1 year, and next year again I have to reduce. So the opportunity that the organization or a buying organization would have on cost saving might reduce, not always, right? But we should not make it predictable, right? So we have to keep changing our strategies year on year. Some of the practices I would say which might help. I have worked on it. My team has worked. A lot of industry peers have worked. One is the moment we start talking about long-term agreements, right? Now, that is something which sometimes does help. Long-term agreements. I think one of the risks that always come when you are discussing internally about long-term agreement, business would say, why are we committing for long-term to a vendor? What if we have to change it, right? We sometimes forget that there is always a termination clause in your agreement, right? It gives you protection that you can always terminate at convenience. But making a commitment, right? If things are driving better results, better cost, why not? So that is one thing that has to be set right. Second,
Mhm.
a lot of research, I'm sure Everest also has done this research, wherein there are a lot of contractual inefficiencies which are observed during the life cycle of a contract, uh, as low as 3% and up to 10 to 12%. These are the numbers which various reports have published, that once if you have executed an agreement, if you keep an eye on it, if you keep checking SLAs, KPIs, suppliers performance, if you keep building or strengthening your relationship with supplier, you will always get more out of the same agreement which you negotiated some time back. So we follow supplier performance management practice, under which we keep looking at what was actually agreed in the agreement and how is supplier performing on that. Also, we look at how we are performing as organization on that contract, and we have seen value coming out of it. It could be sometimes hard savings, or sometimes could be soft savings, right? For example, just based off a relationship, if you can delay the pay terms also, right? Why not? That's a benefit which finance will always realize. Building structures around penalties and incentives is something which really really works. Yes, I know the reservation comes, oh, we can penalize the supplier, but what if they perform, right? Are we sure that we have to give the incentives? Now, that is
Yeah.
where I think we should keep our contract in such a manner that the KPIs and SLAs and associated clauses should always be in a manner that you can update them, or make them more favorable for you. So that's the third thing I would say we should do. And fourth is knowing your supplier very well. Because when we talk about any new services, natural tendency of any buyer or any person is, okay, let me go out and see who actually does this. Why can't we explore what our current supplier base can do? It's all about your discussion with them. If they have a similar capability, can you co-create a solution with them which can actually help you to drive more value? Your top line might remain same with the supplier, but unit economics might work better with the same supplier. So these are some of the ways I would say cost optimization can be driven, apart from the traditional approaches of annual reviews or across the table bidding, or doing the reverse auction, etc.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'll just great points, Suresh. I'll just maybe add to a couple of them. One, you mentioned things like payment terms. I think another factor which we've seen enterprises using is the relation using that relationship to see if cost of living adjustment can be deferred for a year, right? Waiver for a year. It's been a tough year. There's uncertainty. Even 2 to 3% depending on the country can be a lot when we're talking about millions. Right? That's I think one. The second point, and I'm glad you mentioned this, because it's so true that most enterprises are totally fine as expected with penalties, but with incentives, there seems to be, hey, why are we giving $1 extra? And I think the trick over the years, what we've found is that people who've been successful with implementing this, they've done it where they've linked those incentive payouts where the outcome is actually very very different in either from a service experience perspective or from an overall savings perspective, so it becomes more like self-funding. If it's just you get paid $10,000 extra if you hit 99% availability instead of 98.5, there's going to be significant resistance that, oh, they just got lucky one time and bingo, right? So yeah, while that's a great one, I think it needs a lot of diligence in crafting those metrics to make sure that you're really paying for something that, if I may use the term, wow, awesome, right? Not like good to very good. So
Definitely. And in fact, Abhishek, this someone, Jay is asking the question around this only, which you recently answered around outcome-based pricing, examples around it, and how we have seen it to be useful, right? So thanks for sharing that. And I hope that answers your question, Jay. I would like to bring in Priya to the discussion now. Priya, I know we've been, in touch for a long time, and you've shared a lot of perspectives around how cost optimization strategies are different in the CPG industry. So, could you also bring in your views on that here?
Sure, Bhanushi. Thank you so much for having me. Um, so I wouldn't say that they're drastically different, right? I think it's about the industry that we live in. Working in the CPG industry, it's extremely dynamic. It's extremely driven by the market sentiments, right? If you talk about 50 years ago, 20 years ago, where the social media was not that prone, the market preferences wouldn't change from a daily basis. But today, when we talk about the CPG industry, it changes very, very quickly, and the brand or an organization needs to keep up with that. And that's exactly how procurement also needs to function as a support to the business through the business partnering that we do, which essentially means that whilst the procurement tactics, strategies may remain the same, they need to be that much more agile, dynamic to keep up with the times. To add to it, what Brish was mentioning in terms of the supply performance management, I think that becomes the crux for a lot of the strategic partners on a monthly or bi-monthly basis to ensure that we are getting the best value out of it. That is the only way to get more with less, in my opinion.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing. So I see that there's another question on this within the chat, right? And I would like to just throw it out there to the group here again. Maybe Priya, if you've seen any perspectives around this as well. So what people are asking is around the specific strategies or technologies in your organization to effectively leverage Gen AI or other types of levers to be able to achieve more with less in the APAC region. So any views that anyone has on the technology aspect, it can be around Gen AI, but also I would like to leave the floor open for any other technologies that you've seen are able to bring that leverage.
So I think Gen AI, very honestly, not yet. I see a lot of people testing around with it, figuring out how Gen AI can potentially support procurement, right? Maybe it reduces the backend operations, maybe it reduces the Excel work that we need to do, maybe the market research work, but it's still in the trial phase, I would say. Having said that, in terms of the technologically driven processes or any kind of work that we do within the product side or the services side, that's definitely increased over the years, especially since COVID. Uh, for me personally, I think digitization is the new norm. If a process, if an entire procurement strategy can be digitized, if a vendor's methods or whatever they're delivering can be digitized, nothing like it, leading to a higher level of compliance, leading to a higher level of transparency and visibility across the entire value chain. So
Yeah.
digitization is on the rise. Gen AI, a little bit.
Correct. Yeah.
Sorry.
And Priya, if I may add, while it's generally the trend to talk about any technology which is 5 years old, oh, that's passe. But as you mentioned, there's still so much of work which can be done by using standard automation, standard digitization, where for various reasons, even some of the leading companies may not have done it in one function. It could be leadership, it could be other priorities, it could be maybe the risk function taking a very strong view. So yeah, the overall digitization of elements, I think that there's much more before simply jumping on Gen AI. I think there's a lot more to be done even on standard process optimization per se.
Absolutely.
Excellent points. And we've been talking to our clients about this, and what they have been saying is that are we ready as an organization to have so much technology, right? Have we consolidated our data? Have we thought about the processes itself? Are they are not working in silos anymore, right? So once we solve all these aspects, we have this readiness. That is when we'll be able to reach the stage in which digitalization will actually be able to create the impact that we want it to create, right? So that's great to know. Now, I think all of us have been discussing a lot about, supplier relationship management as a whole. Brish, you mentioned a lot about partners, how you've been sort of managing the partnership model as well. So since you are an advocate of, the 360-degree program with your suppliers to encourage that partnership model, Could you throw some more light on that aspect, especially thinking about how you're able to drive them towards innovation and thinking about those angles?
Sure, Manushi. So, the starting point, I have seen, what drives 360 degrees, knowing the business that you are in, apart from, the domain. That's where I've seen the big difference that people talk a lot about, procurement. They say we are experts. We know the 6 step, 7 step of procurement. We manage our supplier very well, but for them managing very well is basically year on year we drive the cost down and we retain the supplier base. Now that doesn't kind of I would say drive the partnership model. What I've seen is where you understand the business, you understand what are the KPIs and SLAs of the business stakeholders that you are kind of solving for, and after that, if you start talking to your supplier, your relationship with the supplier becomes much better. Obvious reason is once you have signed a particular supplier, the supplier mostly has to work with the operations team or the end stakeholder, and if you understand their business, what is happening on daily basis, weekly basis, and if you design your supplier performance management program around that, you get more insights. And when I talk about 360 degree, three four things that I would like to specify very clearly is that we should understand who is the decision maker at our suppliers end, right? If you keep talking to the account manager, I'm not saying that you should not, but then you need to understand where are they getting the decision from, and do you have a reach there. I'm not talking about escalation, I'm talking about connect there. If you have a connect there, and if both the parties understand each other's business well, things can be different there. Second, we should always look at understanding the capabilities of our supplier, and I can give couple of examples without naming any supplier. So we try to understand the supply chain of our suppliers also. For example, who's supplier's supplier, and we try to look at what are the other kind of suppliers we have who might have some linkage to the supply base of this supplier. Can we use that? To give you a simple answer, which is very I would say not unique, but something which we are trying right now. So we're talking to one of our critical and large supplier and trying to understand how their costs are structured, right, and how we can optimize those rather than just asking, give me 10% cost cut. We are talking to them, what are the cost elements you have, and we try to understand that. The moment they told me that they have one component which is a field workforce which adds to almost 30 to 40% of the cost, I said, can I connect you to some other partner of mine who's actually specialized in the field workforce? Why don't you guys talk? Because it seems that you are not getting the right set of partner for you. And if two of you talk to each other, at the end of the day, I will get a price reduction because your that 30% will now become maybe 25%, right? And you might get a better partner. Now that is how we kind of drive this. Third thing that we do here is we try to introduce our products also to the CXOs that we typically work with, because for sales team in our organization also, they always they sometimes would see entry barrier to some of the organization, and if I have a connect with CXO of that organization, can I kind of uh, open that door for my sales partner, introduce them, and drive a 360-degree kind of a business wherein I'm getting business from them and they're also getting business from me. Both are independent, though they should not be kind of clubbed in a manner wherein it's a trade-off. It should not be a trade-off, but can we open those doors? That's what we are trying to do as a part of 360 degree. Along with that, when I spoke about supplier performance management program earlier, we write down the AIs or action items very clearly after each and every review, assign it to one of the owners, and we try to kind of make sure that this is delivered on time and as expected. So what that does is it reduces the surprises to us as the buying organization as well as a supplier, right? So when you do all such things, your relationship with the supplier becomes much better, and you can actually have an influence on each other's business, and you can actually end up co-creating also some solutions. We do have few examples wherein we knew that we have the domain knowledge much better than the supplier on a particular thing or our industry. So we actually ended up getting some solutions co-created with them rather than just pushing them. I want this, go and get it from somewhere. No, it doesn't work every time, right? So sometimes you have to do the co-creation also. So these are some of the examples that I would say we have practiced as a part of the 360-degree program.
Great. Thanks, Brish. Priya, one of the topics which I wanted to get your perspectives on was, see, from an innovation perspective, this is a term which gets talked about a lot, but then, like I mentioned, there's always a range of feedback from enterprise clients, whether they're getting it, not getting it, how difficult it is. What role does kind of, maybe a strategic partnership, kind of a relationship with the supplier play in getting the desired innovation, right? So I know broad topic, we can talk for hours on that, but wanted to get your perspective quickly. Yeah.
No, definitely, Abhishek. Yes, innovation and sustainability, I believe, are two terms that have
Yeah.
recently become the words for procurement professionals as well. Talking about innovation, I think in line with what Prish was just talking about, right? Having strategic partners with whom you've got a constant connect. You're talking to them, they understand the business that they're doing for you, but they also kind of are involved in the conversations relating to the business on a frequent basis. It could be monthly, it could be bi-monthly, it could be biannual, but understanding the DNA, what is the larger organization vision and how they can support with that. Just conversing through that on a periodic basis definitely helps overcome the challenges that disrupts any kind of innovation. For example, in my prior organization, not this one, the ask was, like I was saying, sustainability became the new factor, right? But BTL or PSM, definitely one of the big pillars for any CPG player or in the market. The ask was, how can we innovate? Price cost pressures are always there, right? The people or the partners who delivered were the ones that had been with the organization for a long term, that understood the DNA of the organization. What is it that we want to achieve? And learning from the market. The good thing about a strategic partner is they might be a great strategic partner for you, but they might also be for some other players. So they keep on learning, consolidating those learnings and working together with them, let's say in a war room. I think that definitely leads to innovation. But like you said in the beginning, innovation is a very subjective and a huge width, depth term.
Yeah.
So if someone kind of complains that innovation is not there or someone's not delivering, I think that expectation clearance
Yeah.
and that frequent connection is very important
Yeah,
to achieve that.
absolutely. It's a two-way street. You need to sometimes set the right expectations, and also provide resource from your end to make sure that it happens. In isolation, I think we'll only get ideas. The execution and getting them to fruition is a dual street. So thanks for that.
Yeah. I think this just links very well to defining innovation well, right? There is a lot of business as usual activities that are sometimes classified as innovation, and that's where the gap occurs because we as a department have not aligned with business that what exactly do you want as innovation, what is the micro level of innovation you want, and what is that macro level of innovation, right? So once we're able to reach that clarity internally as well, we will be able to create larger impact. Now, having talked about all this, again, bringing in another question from the audience. So, do we feel, what do we feel are the metrics that procurement is being tracked on in their own performance scorecard? Of course, we have the usual cost savings, we have the usual, business collaboration, CSAT scores, all of that, right? Are they still the ones in your scorecards, or have we moved beyond that to measure supplier innovation too?
I'm sure there's I'm not someone in the procurement function, but I think there's definitely one of the metrics will, I guess, surely be around cost, right? The delta, cost achieved against the targets. what about some of the others, Brish, Priya? Is there something around supplier diversification? I know I'm just talking off the cuff, but I'm sure you have much finer details.
Right. Yeah, Abhishek. So, broadly, the matrices are always around cost optimization and customer satisfaction. But the moment we, further break customer satisfaction, so there are many components to it. What stakeholders want is from the satisfaction is that my operation should not suffer because of suppliers delivery, right? And that is where, when we are constructing a contract or writing a contract or defining a scope of work, it has to be crystal clear. It should write down very clearly what is it that supplier has to deliver, what are their obligations, what are buying organizations obligations. Those things need to be written down very clearly. Second, you have to define RACI also very well. I'm sure a lot of people will agree. While most of the organizations would have sourcing and procurement slash procure to pay functions separated, suppliers still would reach out to sourcing person in case they don't get paid on time. And before reaching out to sourcing, they will always keep pinging the operations people. Do operations people know the procure to pay process well? Maybe sometimes not, right? So they start getting irritated because of that why the supplier is asking me, why can't they go to account payable team, or why can't they reach out to sourcing person. Now that adds to the satisfaction. So we have to kind of make sure that the RACI is defined, so that the business folks, they kind of uh, don't think that they are unnecessarily being reached out by the supplier. Third, there always will be scenarios wherein suppliers will be reaching out to the business teams, pitching their products and how different they are from others, right? And sourcing or procurement, they sometime would come to know from business with a ask, oh, I met this supplier, they're offering 20% better price and better SLAs and a innovative product, right? Can you look at them? But in their mind sometime it would be there, how come procurement person doesn't know about this and I got to know, right? So you have to kind of make sure that as a procurement person you are always in touch with the market, talking to the supplier what is happening in the domain, so that it shouldn't happen that if a business person is sending a note to you saying, this is what I found, and you're saying, okay, let me investigate what is this, right? Now that actually impacts the I would say trust level there. So one should always be open to understand what is happening, right? And what I do follow, and I've seen a lot of people following, that they keep meeting suppliers, they keep reading, they keep taking demos of the product and try to bring the best practices in their own services, sometime with the existing supplier itself, if they can deliver, right? And the other thing is, keep doing the price benchmarking, which I think does help. I personally have seen, when you go with the data to the business, that okay, there is a third party who has actually done the benchmarking around what should be the right set of pricing, the right set of SLAs and KPIs for a particular product, and we are there, right, or we are doing better than that. That actually makes a lot of change. Last, make business always part of your review process also with the supplier. So it should not be that procurement and supplier are talking and doing benchmarking of each other's organization with business completely out of it. They should always be part of this process. So that's how it typically works. I would say how the matrices for procurement can, vary, or the top three or top four matrices can vary from organization to organization.
I think I agree. Like a lot of clients have been working in a similar manner, right? Expanding their scorecard to introduce all of these factors so that it's also about procurement getting credit for all the work they're doing, not just around cost and savings and all. It's all the intangible outcomes that we are able to create, whether it be, even sustainability impact in some organizations, right? So I would say, I mean, that's really great that you're able to, go towards that higher order thinking. Now, I want to ask one question again to the larger group, right? This would be around, let's say, we have a large supplier portfolio. Are we thinking about optimizing those relationships in any way or form by maybe, let's say, consolidating the vendor portfolio and or thinking about other strategies that okay, maybe we can add specialists or new suppliers to the mix who introduce some new technologies or new services. What is your view on that?
So, Bhanushi, I think this is, for me, in my opinion, it's slightly category specific, right? That is exactly where the strategy kind of, or the procurement strategy comes out to play. For example, if you're talking about a product based category, let's say POSM, right? We have established aggregators across the country and the world at the moment, whether it's paper based, whether it's hard POSM, right? At that time, leveraging that expertise, leveraging the sub supplier base of these aggregators would be an ideal strategy if it works with the organizational goals, right? But like you very well said, there are certain categories, especially on the technology side, where the expertise is not commonly available, or certain consultants, when we're talking about on the media side or the communication side or external affairs, it cannot be replicated because it's driven by a particular person or the people within that organization. In that case, of course, we will need those specialists. So um, I think most of the organizations, in my opinion, are lately looking at supplier rationalization, but that supplier rationalization is definitely dependent on different categories, how to strategize and figure out where the rationalization works, where the specialist works, and we do need to add more partners into the mix depending on the expertise. And like we said, the times are ever changing. In technology, there might be certain terminologies I've never even heard of yet, and suddenly tomorrow we might need a partner who actually can deliver on that, right? So to that end, we do need to constantly add, but also parallelly rationalize the existing supplier base.
Definitely
But
agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, just to add one point which you mentioned, that times are constantly changing. A lot of us have the tendency to say, well, everything is going towards consolidation or everything is going towards diversification. It's what I call entropy. There's dust particles moving all over, right? That's how it is. So to give you an example, just in the past month, two different clients in the same industry. One is absolutely gung ho on consolidation because they've got like seven core vendors and 70 others practically doing the same thing, right? Within application maintenance, development, and this business likes this vendor and they've done it. So obviously there is room for consolidation. The other client, has a group of about 6 to 7 they work with, and they're adding one more, but at a different tier. They work with all tier ones, right? They're adding, they recently got out an RFP for just to tier two suppliers, and obviously because they have better negotiation leverage with them. It's a top tier financial services brand, so they're being prescriptive that, hey, this is the rate with which you will sign the contract. Now they're not bullying or trying to get to insane rates, but that's just something which they want. I mean, their overall cost pie, and they're more than happy to oblige, because so that's just a strategic decision, as you mentioned, depending on the category.
And if I may add maybe a couple of lines here, one quote which I like a lot is that every company is a supplier to some company as well as a customer to some company,
Yeah.
right? So every company will always try, to find, I would say, how they can grow, horizontally apart from, just the vertical growth. And this, I think, has picked up significantly well in last few years. What this gives us as a buyer, an advantage is that you don't have to go to too many suppliers nowadays and start exploring. So with that, your consolidation effort, slightly reduces. If I have to give an example, industry example, telecom solutions. If we look at this industry, the telcos, they were always in the business of giving, SIM cards, connectivity, data center solutions, and all. And on the other hand, there were companies who were building their solutions on top of, the telecom solution, the messaging services, or the bot services, etc. Today, if you look at, all these telecom companies are now growing horizontally, wherein they are bringing those solutions which others were building on their platform earlier, right? So today, as an organization, if I have to go out and search for a supplier, I don't have to go and start searching for, a specialized service provider. Maybe I can talk to the telco. Do you have the solution? So my I would say supplier consolidation is already happening if I start that dialogue. So that's something which is changing. And there will always be scenarios wherein you'll be buying something for the first time, and you might have to bring a new supplier. So your supplier base might increase, but we'll have to see what is the consolidation strategy for procure to pay team versus the sourcing, right? Sourcing will always focus on the cost optimization. Procure to pay will look at, can we reduce our supplier base, because managing each and every supplier's record in the system and doing their due diligence adds to the cost, right? So the objectives are different, but we'll have to kind of talk to each other and make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's maybe change gears into another interesting topic around technology adoption. We've seen tech optimization has been a major theme across functions. If you look at customer experience, right, into what we now call digital CXM, which includes automation, analytics, conversational AI, which delivers kind of personalized end-to-end interaction. It's still a journey, but there are pockets where it's being adopted quite a lot. HR, I think, is heavily driven as a function by technology. The workdays, success factors, I think they've taken different elements, and I think it's, if you look at functions, it's one of the most successful areas where BPaaS, business process as a service, you can run on one or a few other bolt-on platforms. Similarly for finance, and finance is a bit more segregated because R2R will have different, O2C will have different. I think procurement is latching on that bandwagon too, pretty good, because just a couple of days I was looking at a page, and Banushi, you'll recognize that, which had the supplier life cycle and technology solutions which play a role in each one of that. It was quite varied, but it was interesting how maybe for each sub area, there are some specific solutions. So let me start with Priya. Priya, how has some of that evolved? At PMI, let's say over the last year or a couple of years. Have you seen some of that landscape changing as well?
So it's interesting, Abhishek, that this comes up a day after we were having a conversation about this in the office. Some of the people who've been in the organization for a while, they were actually introducing me to the erstwhile procurement process, where it was completely manual, completely email
Yeah.
based. The documents would be printed. The bidding would come in form of a sealed envelope with a lock-in
Yeah.
key dropped into a box, with two people having two different keys to maintain those compliances, who would need to open them, take them out, whatever. From there to now, where we've got systems in place, right? Workday as a PNC tool really works. Even for procurement, they've got a particular module that works for e-bidding. So we've got Workdays, Arebas, and Coopers of the world, which are making everyone's lives easier. The rate cards that are set up in the contract, right? That was being done even, let's say, 5 years ago from today. But referring to that contract, which is a PDF copy maybe, or a hard copy, maybe pages and pages of those rate cards,
Yeah.
wasn't an easy task. I think that has definitely evolved over the years. And even the organizations who were a little, I wouldn't say slow in adopting, but there was some resistance to that change because of a number of factors. That has drastically changed post-COVID era. So since 2021-22, when people have started coming back to the offices, but with a flexible mode, even if not flexible, people have started to understand why digitization within procurement is also essential. So one part is, of course, in terms of the sourcing or bidding platform. The other is also in terms of contract management with the digital signatures. So I think that has definitely evolved for PMI, definitely, and any other organization that I've been in touch with.
Yeah.
No, you're
Thanks,
right. You're
Priya.
right. All over, right? It's all over. Digitalization is key these days, and there's a lot of curiosity in the market, even if there's not a lot of hardcore implementation that has happened end to end. There is definitely sort of like an evolution in the way people are thinking. They know that technology and process optimization is the way to go forward, and that is a major change in itself, right? We're thinking in that direction. We will definitely take action in that direction. So I think at this point, this is a good point to also give our audience an offer from our end. What we want to give you is a complimentary access to a report on generative AI. This is an educational report for you all. So we're calling it Innovate or Stagnate, the Generative AI Imperative, right? What we're trying to show you within this report is, how the Gen AI market has been evolving in the past and current few months. And we're also analyzing it across dimensions. So we're looking at key industries, we're looking at the business functions that it has impacted, the level of impact it has created on these functions, as well as, of course, some specific solution characteristics, the trends, the provider landscape in GenAI, risks, best practices, and overall future outlook that we have. So we are posting a link in the chat. If you want to get complimentary access to the report, all you need to do is just give your details, and we will be getting back to you with it, right? I think do we have the link posted? We'll be just posting the link in a second, but do take some time to fill out that form and just give us your details so that you can get access to this. All right. With that, now I think what we want to do is just change sort of the story a little bit and talk about how tech is enabling your organization to become more lean and agile, right? So is tech able to create process optimization? And if yes, what are the impacts that it is able to create? So I would actually invite Brish to share his views on this because I know he has some strong perspectives here.
Sure.
Mhm.
Thanks, Manushi. So I'll be broadly, talking about some of the trends that are coming in the procurement solution space, specifically on the technology. Not everything has been deployed, I would say, in my organization, but this is more of an industry view which I have heard. First thing, which is coming up quite fast, is something called procurement front door, or the intake process. And if you look at a lot of these solution providers in last 1 year, a lot of them have come up with this. The reason for that is because sourcing always has been saying that our stakeholders bypass us for 20 to 30% of the spend, or they reach out to us late. But if you go and start talking to the stakeholders, or try to understand the process, you will find those loose ends. You might have a procurement policy in place, you might have all the tools and systems, but not everyone would be aware, and there are so many entry points. Someone can send their requirement over email, someone can ping you on Slack or other tools, someone can come and talk to you. So how to solve for this? That's where the concept of procurement front door has picked up significantly, well, I would say in last 1 year. So this is one technology focused trend that has been observed. So what happens in this? Let me just give a simple example. And different companies have different. They say, okay, here is one entry point for every single employee in the organization, which has all the data feeds into it, which would have your spend data linked to that, which would have your procurement policy linked to that particular entry point. And as a new person, if I join an organization, I want to buy something, I will go to that particular front door and I'll start putting my queries in simple English. I want to buy a laptop, right? System would have that intelligence because everything has been fed, wherein it will tell me, Brish, you are based out of India in this office, and as per the policy, you are supposed to get a Dell machine, and here is your supplier, this is the price, and this is the process how you can buy. Go on this procurement system, there is a catalog, just click on that button and your requisition will be submitted, and you can expect the delivery in 3 weeks. And after that, invoice will hit your mailbox, you just have to approve it. Simple, right? I don't have to go and ask someone. On the other hand, if someone is buying something for the first time, say I want to buy labor services in say California, right? The engine will tell them that this is a high risk commodity and we do not have, say, a rate card in place for this. You have to reach out to strategic sourcing team, and as you are based out of California, your business partner in sourcing or procurement is this person, and these are his office hours, right? Whatever you feed, you will get the response within few seconds, and see how easy the life would be. And this is one trend that I have seen has been picked up significantly well. Everyone is talking about it. They are now integrating it with tools like Slack or Google Chat also, so that you don't have to write a mail also or search for a link. Whatever tool you are using, just start from there, you will get the response. Second, procurement orchestration or the process orchestration tool is picking up significantly well. And this is where, again, the machine learning and artificial intelligence to some extent is telling a business user that what are the next steps in the process, how much time does it take, what are the barriers which have been observed, and what they should do to solve for that. I would say this is relatively new and still need to be kind of polished. The solution has to be polished, but this is another technology area which P2P companies or solution companies are actually focusing upon. Third is bots, which I'm sure a lot of us have been using. We have seen this working with our service providers, could be telecom, or could be insurance, or could be banking. Now that is coming into the procurement organization also, right? You put your query, you get a response back from a bot where it will get some information and tell you. And that's where this bot is now being integrated with the procurement front door also. So broadly, these are some of the technology advancements that I'm seeing in this domain. So yeah.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, I think these are all great points. And you mentioned one key aspect, right? Making our lives easier. So it's all about, reducing the amount of, less judgment intensive tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis, and enabling our team also to be able to take more strategic decisions, and to be able to take up these tasks that actually need that human intensive decision making. And I remember that there was a client that I worked with, and they had a bot that they used to copy in their emails to just set up the meeting invites. I thought, wow, this is so great. I mean, I personally hate coordinating and between calendars and trying to find time between everyone to schedule, but this bot is just doing it for you so
Yeah.
easily, right? So these are all, I think, great points, and I feel there's a certain level of maturity that you gain as an organization. You're able to give your people more mature tasks, and that just gives you a lot of leverage going forward. All right. So I think we're, almost very close to the end of this LinkedIn Live, but we do want to hear, we've heard a lot from the audience. I see there are so many questions out there. So what we can do now is probably just talk about some of these questions, right? And we'll try to address it to our best ability over here. So what I want to start with is my favorite topic, I think, ESG, because there's a lot of buzz around. Okay, is ESG just about greenwashing within procurement, or is it actually creating impact? How are we measuring it? And I see that there is a linked question to this as well, wherein someone is asking about ESG and the metrics that we are seeing being used as part of it. So, does anyone have any perspectives to share on this particular aspect based on your experience?
Maybe a couple of things from my side. I won't say that it is a pure greenwashing, but is the solution or the concept a fully evolved? Answer is no, because there is no standard way of defining the ESG score of a supplier. If we look at the different solution providers, and I will not name, everyone has developed their own methodology. Someone says that your score is 800 out of 1,000. Someone says your score is 65 out of 100, and everyone has more or less the same set of questions that they ask. But there is no regulatory body which is defining that if someone's score is X, they are best in class. So that standardization is missing, right? But yes, procurement is focusing upon it, and it should be beyond the carbon neutrality or usage of plastic. We have to look at ESG has a lot of other things that we can easily deploy. Could be as simple as child labor in your supply chain, or maybe where your manufacturing is happening and what kind of work environment is provided to the workers who are working there. So those are the other things which procurement is looking at. Yes, some companies do have ESG score as one of the criteria for selecting a supplier, but over the period of time I have heard that while it is there, but sometimes or most of the time cost still plays the important role, and you kind of sideline that ESG agenda. So that's what the ground reality is on ESG today.
I
Yeah,
think this is not a deal breaker at this point. It is a good to have, but not a must have, right?
yeah,
I think it could
and
be a must to have if we are able to actually quantify and validate it, right?
yeah.
If we are not, then yes, it would feel like we're just greenwashing the entire thing.
Correct,
Exactly.
correct, correct. And some of it actually could be just a thought. Maybe specific to certain services, maybe there could be a bit of a decision. Let's say it's fleet services or something which has a lot of involvement where you can directly see that okay, this if we're for example ordering food, just a thought. Cafeteria services, right? And if there's a supplier who only uses 100% green sourced coffee or it's certified that there's no child labor, I think that's a decision. But like you said, it's all got to be within the realms of economic consideration and value. I mean, if a cup of that unfortunately costs three times that of a Starbucks cup, it's very difficult to keep in the cafeteria, right, to justify that. We've got another question, right? Another interesting one. Speaking of money, suppliers want to reduce DSO, but clients want to pay as late as possible. It's a dichotomy. Do we have an initiative where smaller suppliers get paid quicker than the bigger ones? I think that's an interesting question, and maybe we can request Brish and Priya to share their thoughts from a practitioner, industry perspective. I'll just share my view that one of the things which we've seen, large clients doing, or and even suppliers kind of thinking that way, is that for certain clients may um, who may have the cash reserves, they've seen balancing it out that hey, if you were to pay sooner than the 60 days, keep it to 30, keep it to 15, we'll offer you a certain discount, right? So what that does is that it keeps their cash flow coming from some of the clients who are cash rich, whereas then they can use some of that cash liquidity to offer longer terms of payment to, let's say, certain industries or certain organizations who are pushing for 75, 90, 120 days. So that's a bit of an internal tactic to see how the dichotomy can be managed. But the interesting part, I'll just request Brish and Priya's comments. Is there a that hey,
Sure.
it's a smaller supplier? Yeah,
Two
we
two points very quickly here. So first, in certain countries, there are definitely regulations around for the small and the medium suppliers. You can't
Mhm.
go beyond certain pay terms. If I talk about India, we call it MSME, right? Medium and small, sorry, MSME enterprises, right? So you can't have these suppliers on pay terms like 60 days. You have to pay them in
Yeah,
max 45 days, right? Similarly, in Australia, I know that certain section of suppliers, they always should get paid in 30 days. So government is also kind of protecting their existence so that companies pay them. Second is the concept of early pay discount, and there are these companies into supplier financing who are actually coming in between the buyer and the seller, and telling that I will pay your supplier as soon as they want the money in their bank, but yes, I will be taking maybe 0.5% to 1% cut in between as my financing fee. So that's a solution which is working pretty well, I would say, across the globe now. Adoption is definitely increasing. So these are the two trends which are very much there. Yeah, Priya, what do you?
Uh, couldn't agree more, Brish. Those were the exact two things that I was thinking about. But additionally, I think in the middle of the conversation, I was talking about aggregators as well, right? So I think that's a third non-financing kind of a way, but really a financing way to get out of this dichotomy. And that has actually worked for a lot of smaller partners that I've been in touch with, especially during the distress or the recession periods. Attaching themselves to a particular aggregator has not only helped to increase the kind of business that they get from multiple clients instead rather than a single one or a couple of them, but also they get paid on time. The larger aggregator could have a higher payment term with the end client.
Right. Different strategies with different types of suppliers that work, right? Excellent. All
Essentially.
right. Okay, so we're at time now, and I think this was a very insightful discussion. At least for me, I got to learn a lot, and this group, thank you so much for participating in it. And to our audience as well, I know you have a lot of questions. I still see some of you posting. We will be replying to your questions, but not in this session. We will be, replying to your comments or reaching out to you separately. So don't worry about that. We'll answer all your questions. Just want to again reiterate before we close, we do have a complimentary offer for you. There is a market report on generative AI, which will give you an entire view of the Gen AI ecosystem across business functions, industries, and so on and so forth. We're posting the link again. Do download that and let us know how you feel about it as well. Right. So with that, I want to thank everyone who participated in this session, not just our speakers, esteemed speakers, but also the audience over here. And yeah, thank you so much for joining. It was great to have you.
Likewise, thank you. Thanks, Bridge.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Thank
Priya,
you so
and
much,
thanks.
everyone.
Right. Thanks, everyone.